It was a golden evening in Texas. The millionaire cowboy, Adam, stepped down from his horse, boots echoing against the dry dirt. In front of him stood Sarah, nervous, beautiful, and unsure if she should run or stay. The wind carried the scent of dust and wildflowers as Adam walked closer. His deep voice broke the silence. He took her hand, looked straight into her trembling eyes, and whispered, "Tonight, you're only mine." For a moment, time froze. Her heartbeat raced faster than the galloping horses nearby. She knew what this meant: danger, love, and a night that would change everything. The cold air wrapped around them. But his words burned in her heart like fire. Because sometimes, one night in the Wild West can write a story that lasts forever. Cowboy hat face fire. In the fading amber glow of a Texas sunset, where the horizon bled into the endless plains like a lover's whispered promise, Elena Ramirez stood at the edge of her crumbling ranch, her calloused hands gripping the weathered fence post as if it were the last thread holding her world together. The wind whipped through her dark curls, carrying the faint scent of wild sage and regret, while her two young children, little Sophia with her wide, trusting eyes and Tomas, who at 7 already bore the weight of dreams too heavy for his shoulders, clung to her faded denim skirt. The bank notice fluttered in her pocket like a death knell: foreclosure in 30 days. Elena had poured her soul into this land, inherited from her late husband, a man whose laughter once echoed across these fields like thunder. But drought had turned the soil to dust, and medical bills from his final illness had drained her dry. She was 32, with laugh lines etched too deep and a heart scarred by loss, wondering if kindness was just a story told to children under starlit skies. That evening, as the sun dipped below the mesquite trees, a rumble shook the ground, not thunder, but the thunderous approach of a black stallion, its rider cutting through the dust like a shadow come to life. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his Stetson tipped low over eyes the color of storm clouds, and a silver bow tie glinting against a crisp white shirt that spoke of cities far from this forgotten corner of West Texas. Jackson Hale, the prodigal son of the Hale Ranch, now a millionaire oil baron whose name whispered through boardrooms from Dallas to Dubai. He'd left this town a decade ago, a wild-hearted boy chasing fortunes, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and unspoken heartaches. Elena's breath caught as he reined in his horse mere feet from her, dismounting with the grace of a man who owned the earth beneath his boots. "Elena," he said, his voice a low drawl that wrapped around her name like smoke from a campfire. "It's been too long." She straightened, shielding her children behind her, the old wound of their shared youth twisting in her chest. They'd been sweethearts once, under the same relentless sun, stolen kisses behind the old oak by the creek, dreams of forever scribbled in the margins of high school notebooks. But Jackson had ambitions that stretched beyond barbed wire fences, and when the scholarship to Austin called, he'd gone without a backward glance. "What brings you back to Devil's Dust, Mr. Hale?" she asked, her tone laced with the steel she'd forged in widowhood. "Heard you struck black gold. Reckon you own half the state now." He tipped his hat, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, but his eyes held no arrogance, only a weariness that mirrored her own. "The prodigal returns," he murmured, glancing at the sagging barn and the cracked earth. "But not for gold this time. For reckoning." Sophia peeked out, her tiny hand clutching Elena's, and Jackson knelt to her level, pulling a shiny apple from his saddlebag. "For the little ones," he said softly, his voice cracking just enough to reveal the man beneath the myth. Tomas eyed him warily, but accepted the fruit, biting into its crisp sweetness with a child's unfiltered joy. As dusk settled, Jackson lingered, helping Elena mend a section of fence that had given way to the wind's fury. His hands, once soft from city life, were calloused now from ropes and reins. He'd never fully escaped the rancher's blood in his veins. They worked in companionable silence at first, the rhythm of hammer on nail punctuating the symphony of crickets awakening. Then, words spilled like rain after drought. Elena spoke of her husband's slow fade, the nights she'd rocked Sophia through fevers while Tomas asked why Papa wouldn't wake. Jackson listened, really listened, his millionaire facade cracking with each syllable. I was a fool to leave, he admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. Thought money would fill the hollow places. Built empires, Elena, skyscrapers that touch the clouds, deals that make men kings. But every night, in those marble penthouses, I dreamed of this dirt under my nails. Of you. She paused, hammer mid-swing, her heart a wild Mustang threatening to bolt. Dreams don't pay bills, Jackson. Or mend broken fences. But there was a tremor in her voice, a flicker of the girl who'd once believed in forever. He nodded, rising to dust off his jeans. Then let me help. Not as the millionaire cowboy, but as the boy who loved you first. Before she could protest, he was gone into the twilight, leaving only the echo of his words and a promise that hung heavier than the stars emerging overhead. The next days blurred into a whirlwind of unexpected grace. Jackson returned at dawn each morning, his sleek truck loaded with supplies, seed for resilient crops, tools sharpened to a razor's edge, even a solar-powered pump to coax water from the parched well. He didn't flaunt his wealth, instead, he rolled up his sleeves, teaching Tomas how to lasso a fence post with a patience born of regret. Sophia trailed him like a shadow, her giggles filling the air as he spun tales of wild Mustangs and hidden treasures buried in the canyons. Elena watched from the porch, her resolve softening like clay under rain. There was kindness in his touch when he brushed dirt from her cheek, selflessness in the way he deferred to her decisions on the land. "This is yours, Elena," he'd say. "I'm just borrowing the chance to make it right." Yet, whispers slithered through the town like coyotes in the night. At the Rusty Spur Saloon, where locals nursed beers and grudges, old-timers shook their heads. "Hale's playin' savior. That boy's heart is as black as his oil. He'll buy her out, turn this into another drill site." Elena overheard, the doubt seeding like tumbleweed in her mind. One evening, as thunderheads gathered on the horizon, she confronted him by the creek where their youth had bloomed. "Why now, Jackson? After all these years? Is this pity? Some rich man's whim to soothe a guilty conscience?" He turned, rain beginning to patter on his hat, his face illuminated by a flash of lightning that revealed the scars of a life unlived, lines from boardroom battles, shadows from lonely hotel nights. "Pity," he echoed, stepping closer, the space between them charged like the storm. "No, darlin'. It's love. The kind that never left, even when I did." His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing the curve of her jaw, and in that moment, the world narrowed to the beat of their hearts sinking with the rain's crescendo. "Tonight," he whispered, his breath warm against her lips, "you're only mine." The words weren't possession, but a vow, a surrender to the humanity that bound them, raw and unyielding. But fate, that capricious rider, had other plans. As the storm raged, a call shattered the night, the bank, foreclosing early, seizing the ranch at dawn. Elena collapsed against Jackson, sobs mingling with the downpour, her dreams dissolving into mud. He held her, fierce and unbreaking, his millionaire world feeling like ashes in his mouth. In the quiet aftermath, as lightning etched the sky, a profound realization dawned on him, not of wealth's limits, but of its true power when wielded with selflessness. He'd built fortunes, but here, in the arms of the woman he'd never stopped loving, he saw the Real Empire, a legacy of compassion, one act at a time. The first light of dawn crept over the hills like a hesitant apology, painting the ranch in hues of gold and forgiveness, but the shadows of loss lingered heavy in the air. Elena stood on the porch, her children huddled close, their small faces streaked with the remnants of tearful goodbyes to the only home they'd known. The bank's truck rumbled up the drive, its engine a growl of finality, flanked by stern-faced men in suits that looked as out of place as snow in July. Jackson emerged from the barn, his Stetson low, a rolled document clutched in his fist like a gauntlet thrown down. He'd been up all night, phone lines burning to Houston lawyers and Dallas financiers, not for conquest, but for redemption. "Ma'am," the lead banker drawled, clipboard in hand, "this here's official. Sign over the deed, and we'll handle the rest." Elena's hand trembled as she reached for the pen, her voice a whisper lost to the wind. "We've got nowhere to go. This land, it's all we have left of him. Sophia whimpered, burying her face in her mother's skirt, while Tomas clenched his fists, glaring at the intruders with a fire that belied his years. The men shifted uncomfortably, humanity flickering in their eyes. After all, they were Texans too, sons of soil and struggle. Before the ink could touch paper, Jackson stepped forward, his presence commanding yet gentle, like a stallion protecting its herd. "Hold there, gentlemen," he said, voice steady as the Rio Grande. "This deed ain't for signin'. It's for burnin'. He unfurled the document, not the foreclosure, but a new one, crisp and irrevocable. The ranch transferred fully to Elena Ramirez, free and clear, with an endowment for seeds, livestock, and a trust for the children's future. Gasps rippled through the group, even the banker's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mr. Hale," one stammered, "this is unprecedented. You'd forfeit millions in potential oil rights?" Jackson's gaze locked on Elena, his heart laid bare in the morning light. "Worth more than gold," he replied simply, handing her the papers. "Because it's hers. Always was." The unexpected turn hit like a bolt from the cleared sky, no takeover, no strings, just pure, unadulterated generosity. Elena's knees buckled, the weight of salvation crashing over her, and she clutched the deed to her chest as if it were her husband's heartbeat returned. "Jackson, why?" she breathed, tears carving rivers down her dust-streaked cheeks. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his, the millionaire cowboy reduced to the boy she'd loved. "Because seein' you fight alone broke me more than any deal gone south. I chased shadows, Elena, money, power, the illusion of control. But last night, holdin' you in that storm, I realized the truth. Humanity ain't in what we take, it's in what we give without expectin' a damn thing back. You're the kindest soul I ever knew, pourin' love into this land, these children, even when it drained you dry. Tonight, when I said you're only mine, I meant your heart deserves a world that fights for it. And I'll spend every sunset provin' I'm worthy of sharin' it." The bankers, moved by the raw poetry of the moment, packed up without another word, one tipping his hat in quiet respect. Word spread through Devil's Dust like wildfire on the plains. Jackson Hale, the oil king, had given it all away for love, for a widow and her babes. Neighbors who'd whispered doubts now arrived with pies and promises, hammers and hope, rebuilding what the drought had stolen. Tomas, eyes shining, declared Jackson his hero, while Sophia wove wildflower crowns for the man who made the stars seem closer. As the sun climbed high, Elena led Jackson to the old oak by the creek, the one that had witnessed their first kiss and now bore the scars of storms survived. She leaned into him, the deed forgotten in the grass, their foreheads touching in a silent communion. "You didn't just save the ranch," she murmured, her voice thick with wonder. "You saved us. Showed me that selflessness isn't weakness, it's the strongest force there is." He smiled, that boyish grin breaking through, and pulled her close, the world fading to the rhythm of their shared breath. In that embrace, an emotional climax unfolded, not with grand gestures or thunderous declarations, but with the quiet power of compassion, a millionaire who chose humanity over empire, transforming despair into dawn. They built from there, not as conquerors, but as partners, Jackson selling off city holdings to invest in sustainable ranches across the state, teaching Tomas the balance of profit and purpose, while Elena's fields bloomed with crops that fed the community. Sophia grew with stories of cowboys who tamed hearts, not wild horses. And in the evenings, under skies vast as possibility, they'd sit on the porch, hands entwined, watching fireflies dance like hopes taking wing. In the end, dear reader, remember this, in a world that often measures worth by wallets and wins, true riches lie in the kindness we sow without fanfare, the selflessness that turns strangers into saviors, and the humanity that binds us all under the same endless stars. Whether you're chasing sunsets in Texas or dreaming in distant lands, let Jackson and Elena's tale whisper to you, love isn't owned, it's given freely, and in that giving, we find our way home. So step into your own storm, extend a hand, and watch how one act of grace can rewrite the horizon. Hope isn't a fleeting spark, It's the fire we carry for each other, burning bright enough to light the darkest night.